Welcome to 9 Weeks, an unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you by Sloan Walsh and Game Time Sports, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle. Chris Gray's back with you. As always, we are through 1 week of the NESCAC football season, Dave, and it's what we were expecting. We thought that there was going to be a very competitive landscape. We thought there was going to be a lot of new faces. And one of us thought that there was going to be at least one surprising result last week. And we almost saw a couple. We saw one. And what we really saw, and I think we do a quick narrative here, Dave. The NESCAC now, I have on my little pad right here, equals no blowouts. There are no blowouts in this league anymore. There is no team that is superior, so much more superior than any other team in this league. The days of Dave Bagatelle, NESCAC man, putting 28-point spreads in his weekly blog are gone, because that is a thing of the past, my friend. This is quickly turning into an NFL-style landscape where every game is going to be, at least at the beginning of the year before injuries come into play.
Yeah.
Every team in this league is within 14 points of one another.
Dare we use the word parity? I don't know.
That's the word.
That's the word. But yeah, you and I were chatting about this offline, and I blogged about this week. I thought the level of play for could be a whole host of reasons, was just not great this week. I thought you saw a lot of turnovers, a lot of sloppy play, a lot of stupid penalties, drop passes, just
a lot of things that could be alleviated with one non-conference game, Dave, or preseason,
or an extra week of practice, or larger rosters, dare I say, or there's a lot of things out there. Part of it is you have 5 new quarterbacks. So you had a lot of inexperience at the most important position on the field. But there were really, of the 10 teams, I thought there were probably 2 of of course, you're going to have 5 teams that are happy because they won. But I think the 2 teams that come away from the week saying they're probably pretty satisfied with the way they played are Wesleyan, Colby. How can you not be? You know what?
I think Williams.
I'll throw Bates in there too, just because they haven't beaten Amherst, and it's a big opening day win, and that was super important, their 150th anniversary. So I'll throw them in the mix, too. But we're going to go through each of the games. But I just thought the level of play in the league was just really not great. I watched all 5 of the games. I was at one of them. I watched another one live, and then I watched the other 3 on replay. Look, the coaches are going to earn their pay this week. They've got to do a lot of coaching up to get ready for week 2. And I know later on we're going to preview the games. There's some really interesting games on the schedule as well, which we're going to talk about later.
All right, so let's not waste any time, Dave. This is the time of the podcast where we go through last week's games. Let's jump right from the top of the ledger. Bates and Amherst. This was a game that you had circled for a Bates team that you thought was poised to be a team that was going to be an up-and-comer in the NESCAC. You've talked about them a lot. I know other people who are very bullish on Bates this year, and through 3+ quarters, it looked like Coach Mills was going to turn back the clock a little bit. Amherst was up 23-9. It looked like Bates was dead in the water, and next thing, the Bobcats went in double overtime. Really a battle, but certainly at the end of the day for Bates, a well-earned victory, and maybe a lot to build on for the Bobcats, but certainly a crushing defeat for Amherst.
Yeah, it was really, really surprising. Like you said, Amherst had a big lead heading into the 4th quarter, and then Bates, they run the flex option, they run the ball a lot, they run the ball really well. Of course, they've got Ryan Linsky as their primary ball carrier, but they also have Sergio Beltran now, who they moved over from wide receiver, and he ran the ball. They didn't bring in, he was in there, the quarterback, Perry, and he threw 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and they furious comeback, tie it up, send the game in overtime. Crazy game in overtime, back and forth. And Marcus Ruiz, whose brother, Ramon Ruiz, also played for Bates. He's a Don Bosco kid. I think Marcos also went to Don Bosco. They're from Haskell, New Jersey, up in Lake Country, New Jersey, northwestern part of the state. Kicked the game-winning field goal, and Bates gets that really huge opening season win. They only won 2 games a year ago. Coach Coyne's been trying to build something there, and I still think they're a year away from challenging for an NESCAC title. But if they were going to hope to get to 500 this year, if they were going to hope to get to 5 wins, this was a absolute 100% must win. Playing at home, their 150th anniversary of football, playing an Amherst squad that's definitely beatable, and they come away with the win and win overtime. Huge win for Amherst.
For Bates, right? It's a
Yeah, yeah.
huge win. And in many cases, these week 1 games at all levels, you see it, but can get away from you. And when the pressure mounts, and that could have gotten away from them, for them to find that intestinal fortitude to figure out a way. You mentioned they flipped the script. They started throwing the football. You have to, right? You have to abandon your game plan. We talked about it in our preview show that a coach with as much defensive experience as Coach Mills was going to be ready for the flex option. And that certainly was the case. And they had to reinvent themselves and figure out a way. So credit to their coaching staff, credit to the players for making plays. But that's a game that feels like more than one win, actually, when you look at it, because they were dead in the water and they come away with a victory. It's a brand new season for them and just a gut-wrenching loss for Amherst. Let's keep it moving. We are going to talk to Colby head coach Cosgrove here later on in the podcast, but certainly a result that shocked many people in the NESCAC. I think if you're familiar with the landscape going into this game, maybe it wouldn't shock you as much, because we're talking about a Trinity team going on the road, having to break in a quarterback, maybe 2 quarterbacks they didn't know what they had, replacing a lot of guys against a Colby team that had a really strong front 7. And you look at the stats, you look at the way this game played out, and Colby with a big home victory, 13-6, beating Trinity for the first time in 30 years, and doing so really in relentless fashion, just nonstop pressure on the quarterback, which led to sack after sack after sack after sack after sack. And
I just counted
4
7 of
turnovers.
them.
Yeah,
Yep.
there were 7 and 4
Yep.
and 4 interceptions. And broadcasting at the time of this game, I look at the scoreboard early, and you put the scoreboard up, and right away Trinity jumps up 6-0, and you're saying, okay, maybe same old Trinity, same old thing. But Colby just held course. They went into halftime. Colby had 3 turnovers and a blocked punt against them in the first half. But we're only down 6-0, and they just stayed the course. They figured it out along the way, and they earned that victory. They dominated the second half of that football game. And Trinity was down 13-6 in that game, punted with 3 minutes left. That tells you the perspective of where they were at and how they felt about their offense in that game. Full credit to Coach Cosgrove. Full credit to the Mules defense. They really beat up Trinity in that football game.
Yeah, it was a performance for the ages. Really, against anybody, you'd be happy with 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, limiting the other team to 52 yards rushing on 30 attempts. But this wasn't just any team. This was the Trinity Bantams. This is a team that's won umpteen million NESCAC titles and just doesn't lose to Colby. I think the last time, and I know they don't play every year, they haven't lost to Colby since 1995. And we got the sense from Coach Devaney that we were going to see multiple quarterbacks. They started Jackson Carroll, who had been with the Bantams for a couple of years. He threw a touchdown, had interception, not awful, 6 completions, 11 yards. They make the switch at halftime. They go to the transfer from SMU. So anybody that follows NESCAC, this guy, his name's Tyler Aronson. He's been the talk of the NESCAC basically the entire season. Coach Devaney needed a quarterback, goes in the transfer portal, gets a transfer from SMU. That's right, SMU. They're in the SEC, I think, right,
No.
Chris? They're in the Big 12? Whatever.
No, keep guessing.
ACC.
There
whatever.
you go.
All right. So they're Power 5 team, right? And from everybody, I don't know how much of this is true or not. You hear he's a 4-star recruit. He comes in at the half, and the guy proceeds to throw 3 interceptions, gets sacked 7 times. Just unbelievable. This is second half. They're committed to this guy, and You're playing Trinity. I don't know the last time. I didn't go back and research it, and I might just do it just out of intellectual curiosity. The last time that a Trinity team gave up 7 sacks and a half to
That's
anybody. Just think about that. That is just crazy. And by the way, as I said, it isn't just that. They've got talented guys in the running back room. They got Tyler DiNapoli, who's an all NESCAC player, who's done it in this league. He's a very good player. 14 carries, 46 yards. Jack Tassoni, another very good player. He's had success in this league. 4 carries, 13 yards. DiNapoli's longest run was 10 yards. Tassoni's longest run was 6 yards. Just crazy. It's just unbelievable to me. Nolan O'Brien, who's an all NESCAC receiver, very good player, did have a touchdown catch in this one, had 4 catches. But the big question marks for me coming out of this game and they haven't been answered, is who's the quarterback for Trinity? By the way, I can't remember the last time we've ever had that debate. Of course, we had Spencer Fetter there. I was a friend of the program. And then, of course, last year we had Xander Zabrowski, another friend of the program, all really high quality. Now, so you have a question mark at quarterback. The offensive line, you get 52 yards rushing and 30 carries, and you give up 7 sacks. And then, of course, you got O'Brien. Who else do you have to complement him at receiver? It used to be you'd have Clapp, you'd have Gerard, you'd have all these guys coming at you. And by the way, let's give some kudos. Colby's defense played off the charts, just really good. They had the defensive player in the week in Bunnell. Cooper Bunnell had 5 tackles, but he had 3.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. He had Jack Mullen, all NESCAC player, 7 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, two sacks. Just really great. Now, on the flip side, Colby's defense, although they play great, they got to figure some things out on the offensive side. Miles Drake, experienced Colby quarterback, returning starter. He had a little bit of a challenging day, threw 3 picks, didn't throw a touchdown. Jack Nye had a great day. He was NESCAC Rookie of the Year last year, 7 catches, 99 yards. But Colby's got to figure out their running game. They ran the ball 35 times for 47 yards, and their longest carry was 11 yards.
Well, just to take over from you there. I think every team in the NESCAC needs to figure out the running game.
100%. Other than maybe Williams, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. Both teams have some things to figure out, but it'll be interesting when we talk a week from now how things look and how Trinity approaches the quarterback position, because you talk about the production when they switch quarterbacks, but the most glaring thing, aside from the turnovers, is the sacks, which a lot of times sacks are on the offensive line, but typically they're on the quarterback, not knowing where the pressure is coming from. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, but there's a reason why they play 9 of these things and not just 1. And without a preseason, you have to be a little patient here and not be Monday morning quarterback right away. Because we said it last week, I don't see any team going 9-0 in the NESCAC this year. So I think every team still controls their own destiny. Literally, every team does control their own destiny at this point. So we continue to move forward throughout the NESCAC slate from week 1. Williams was a team that we felt really good about, but we were a little bit unsure. We had an idea as to how they were going to approach their quarterback play, but we didn't know for sure. And they went to Hamilton and they took a pretty sizable lead. Hamilton fought back, got good quarterback play, but Williams went with an old school approach. They put essentially like a single wing quarterback back there. They put a tight end who ran some wildcat for them last year. They leaned on their running game, and listen, maybe not the most sexy approach, but an effective approach. They took care of the football and they controlled the game. And I know you talked about maybe Colby and Wesleyan feeling good about, but I think Williams probably feels pretty good about where they're at, because they're probably one of 2 teams that was in control of the entire ball game last week. So I think they've got to feel okay about where they're at. And obviously, you're going to have to expand on your offensive attack. You're going to have to figure out a way to have your quarterback be a threat throwing the football, but they certainly have enough talent that they can get away with it for the most part for now. A good win for the Eves.
Yeah, look, if I'm Williams, they travel to Hamilton. It's not a fun place to play your opening week. Hamilton has obviously struggled in the league. They had one of the 5 returning quarterbacks, a former NESCAC Rookie of the Year 2023, in Luke Curzum.
Played a really good game, by the way.
He played a great game. He had almost 300 yards passing. These two teams were totally opposites of each other, right? Williams had almost 260 yards rushing. They ran 52 offensive plays on the day.
Yeah.
44 of them were runs, 8 of them were passes. So they only had 51 yards passing. Williams' running game, they've got Johansson. He can run the ball. As you said, he ran some Wildcat last year. Not really known for his throwing. They're not really looking for him to throw. They're looking for him to run the ball, run the offense. And then they've got John Orris, who was my pick for Offensive Player of the Week this week. NESCAC went over 100 yards, scored a touchdown. We know he's
touchdowns.
quality. 2 touchdowns, sorry. We know he's a quality player. Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns. Yeah. He's a quality player. And Hamilton, the opposite, couldn't run the ball. 22 rushes for 49 yards. But they did pass the heck out of the ball. The interesting thing on the passing was Chester Boynton, who's their all-everything wide receiver, only had 1 of those catches from Luke Curzon. It's the one thing, if I'm Williams, that I'm happy about is the defense played pretty well against a team that was going to air it out the whole day. And the offense did what they wanted them to do. They ran the ball, they controlled the clock, etc. Yeah, if I'm Williams, a win's a win. It's on the road. Week 1, now they head home. So that's should accomplish. They got through the trap game in game 1 against Hamilton.
Yeah, listen, this Williams was up 10-0 at the half. They were up 17-0 in the fourth quarter. They led 24-7. 2 late touchdowns from Hamilton made the scoreboard look a little closer than it was. I think the Continental showed some things on offense, but again, it really speaks to the parity of this league. But I think you look at the way Williams approached this game. Yeah, they weren't out there slinging the ball around, but obviously they were efficient. They didn't turn the ball over. Johansson, in his first start as a quarterback, was 5 for 8, and that's not going to raise any eyebrows, but what it really shows is that they knew that if they executed, they would win this football game. They didn't do anything to hurt themselves. And in week 1 in this league this year, that was enough. Full credit to the Eves, and they will get ready for a big matchup against Colby in week 2 in Williamstown. The nightcap on Saturday was Tufts and Bowden, and a ho-hum.
You can, I mean, I watched
Tufts
this game.
has guys,
I watched this game live.
I don't think either coach is going to want to watch this film too much. There wasn't a lot that happened here, but Tufts shuts out Bowden 13-0. Bowden really struggled offensively, did some things defensively. Tufts breaking in a new quarterback. We thought that could be an issue, and Tufts gets up early, never really felt threatened, and they come away with a road win 13-0.
Yeah, I'm going to call it like it is. This game was a giant snooze fest. It was a really boring football game. I mean, it's okay. And look, Tufts defense, I'm not sure if Tufts defense is really good or Bowden's offense is really bad. I think it's probably a combination of both. Bowden had 8 first downs of the day, 2 of them via penalties. So they had 6 offensive first downs. They turned the ball over. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't run the ball. The offense basically for Bowden in the second half was snap the ball to Michael Wolfendale, who's playing quarterback, and just have him read which hole opened up front. They were doing read blocks up front, and he would just try to find a hole, and obviously didn't work out too well for Bowden. They get shut out on opening day. They didn't show a lot of offense. Meanwhile, Tufts defense got a couple turnovers, and they played obviously well enough to get the win. They did run the ball fairly well. Christian Shapiro, all-league player. Of course, Shirtelis Reese was back. He had a touchdown for them in limited duty. He did not carry the load by any stretch, getting eased back in. I would say the Tufts quarterback situation, Justin Keller, the new quarterback, I would say he got the job done. Didn't kill him. He threw an interception, didn't throw any touchdowns, ran the ball a little bit. He was their second long. He had second most yards for them. He did what he needed to do to win the ball. But it's going to be, we'll get to it later. It's going to be a completely different ball game that Tufts going to be facing this week when they face a very good Wesleyan team that actually has a really good offense. We'll see how they handle that. We'll talk about that game much later.
So that leaves one game left, which was the last 2 teams that won the NESCAC championship, Wesleyan and Middlebury and Middletown. And a game that there were a lot of unknowns. Again, we weren't sure what we were going to see. We didn't know who was going to take the reins for Wesleyan at the quarterback position. It turns out it was Matt Fitzsimons, who we'll talk to later on in this episode, who ended up getting the bulk of the playing time at quarterback for Wesleyan, and he ran with it. He played a really good game. I thought it was Wesleyan, first of all, won 31-17, a game that maybe wasn't that close. Middlebury got the ball on the first drive of the game, drove all the way down to the 1-yard line, and then settled for a chip shot field goal instead of going for it on fourth down. That was a turning point in the game. Wesleyan eventually found their way offensively. And Dave had mentioned to me a few times to be on the lookout for a freshman at Wesleyan by the name of Dante Kelly. And he thought that in the return game, he could be a big factor. But boy, did we know that the first 2 times that this freshman touched the football, he was going to be a complete game changer. He scored on his first touch of the game. And then the second time he touched the ball, it was a catch and run for 51 yards. I want to emphasize catch and run. You haven't seen this kid, you're going to. I'm going to say some things that are going to sound crazy, but he is the most athletically talented player I've ever seen in the NESCAC since I've been covering NESCAC football, which is a decent amount of time. And I don't use that lightly. I have to be cautious with how I say this. If he stays healthy, he will not be in the NESCAC for more than a year or two because he is an absolute physical difference maker. And Wesleyan was able to get him the football. They were able to establish enough of a running game. There's the most balanced Wesleyan offense I've seen in years. And Fitzsimons came in and played as poised as any quarterback I've seen in this league in a long time. Made the right decisions, had a good internal clock, didn't take sacks, didn't turn the ball over. In the defense, replacing a lot of guys at a lot of key positions. I think the front seven was really good for Wesleyan, and they rotated a lot of bodies in. And what my eyes told me is obviously there's a lot of football to be played in this league, but Wesleyan is a live team to repeat and win the NESCAC this year. And I know you got a lot to say, Dave. I'm going to keep talking about Wesleyan because I know you'll go on forever about Wesleyan. Middlebury, I was a little surprised. Middlebury was very conservative in the football game. They lacked a lot of aggression. Something as simple as like fair catching every single kickoff. They didn't look as though once you got rid of their plan A, they didn't look like they really had a plan B. Middlebury was completely inept when it came to running the football, which was a little surprising to me. They were never able to establish the run. And if you took away Ahonen, they didn't do a lot through the air as well. Moran had a good start to the game, but I was a little surprised where Middlebury was at. But I was actually most surprised with what I saw from the Wesleyan Cardinals, Dave. I think of all the teams this week, I think Wesleyan looked the most dangerous, but obviously that's fool's gold to say something like that because get knocked down real quick in week 2. But I was very impressed with what I saw from the Cardinals this week.
Yeah, it was a terrific all-around effort by Wesleyan, offensively, defensively, and on special teams. Starting on offense, and we're going to have Matt Fitzsimons on later. He didn't start the game. Chase Vaughn started the game. Chase, I think, started the first 2 drives, and then they didn't move the ball very much. Then they went with Matt. Chase did play, by the way. There were times when both of them were on the field at the same time, and they did get the ball a couple times running the ball to Chase as well. But Matt looked fantastic, didn't get sacked. By the way, Chris, we've watched a lot of Wesleyan football. Not only did they not give up a sack, they really didn't seem to get much pressure on him at all. Matt seemed to be,
Correct.
he had a lot of time back there in the pocket. I thought this is one of the best, and then remember, it's almost a all-new offensive line. You have 4 new starters. Granted, the 4 new guys that are playing have seen significant time on the field. It isn't like they're complete newbies playing in the NESCAC. They just did a hell of a job. They did a hell of a job not only protecting, they did a hell of a job not getting penalized, not holding. They did a great job running the ball. Wesleyan didn't have a ton of rushing yards, but when they needed the first downs and they needed to punch the ball in the end zone, they made it happen. They got it in the end zone. And so just hats off to the offensive line. And I thought, obviously, you talked about Dante. He's a talented, can't really say anything more about him. He's a talented player.
Just
And
wait
Matt
till you see him.
played, yeah, he's something. He's special. Another in a long line of great Wesleyan receivers who've really been
Different.
blessed. Yeah, he's a different kind of receiver, but
Different.
just another. We've been blessed to see the Brewlers of the world and the Tomlinsons of the world and the Chase Wilsons of the world, but he's a different kind of player for sure. And then the defense, let's not forget the Wesleyan defense. They graduated
A lot of guys.
seven all NESCAC guys, the NESCAC Player of the Year and Ben Carbo, and they go out. And this is a team, Middlebury, that, has run the ball well. They have Connor McClellan, who I believe was second team all NESCAC last year. They had this is Middlebury, who can run the ball. On 24 attempts, they had 27 yards rushing on the day. That's it. And they threw the ball a little bit. A lot of that was on the first possession, by the way, but they also
First 2 possessions of the game, they threw the ball really well.
Yep. And they forced Moran to throw 2 picks, one a pick 6 to AJ Morris, one of my guys from Bergen Catholic here in Jersey. Pick 6. By the way, he outran the running back to the end zone. Very impressive. If you haven't seen it, watch the Wesleyan hype film. Pretty cool. They had a couple sacks, but they were in Moran's face all day. He was feeling the pressure. The pocket was collapsing. He had to rush the ball quite a bit and made a number of errant throws because of that. Great job. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't say I thought the Wesleyan special teams played great. Dante Kelly, who I'm convinced will break a couple this year, had a really nice kick return, almost broke it. And then, of course, the kicker, Cage Hammond, and he struggled a little bit at times with the extra points. He hit all 4 extra points, nailed a field goal, and his kickoffs were all pretty deep. And as you said, Middlebury, I don't know what the story was there. I call it soft, but they refused to return punts or kicks. They looked at the analytics and determined they're just better off fair catching and not risking any fumbles. All around, in some, great day for Wes. Big crowd celebrating the 2024 NESCAC championship. But that's just one on this week to Medford to face Tufts, and we will preview that game later. It should be a great game, a battle of 2 very good teams, battle of 1-0 teams in the NESCAC.
Yeah, I don't want to say I was surprised, but I was fairly confident that I was going to see a really good effort defensively from Wesleyan, and I was unsure of the offensive line play, and the offensive line play was very good. In many ways, I was more impressed with the way the offense functioned in this game than I was at any point in the way the offense functioned last year, which is saying something.
I agree.
But I thought that there was a control to the Cardinals in this game, and I thought that the play calling was controlled aggressive. There was a lot of times where I thought that they would run the ball, and they threw the ball in some situations where I was pleasantly surprised by that. So
we've watched, Chris, you and I a lot of Wesleyan football over the years, and invariably on this podcast and offline, we talk about turnovers, stupid penalties.
There was none of that.
There was none of that this week, and we'll get at some point.
Everything was on. You know what, Dave? Everything was on time. Is the thing that I noticed, and that's why I look forward to talking to Matt Fitzsimons about this. But everything seemed on time. There was no let's get out of the pocket and hope we get someone deep on a broken play on a 9 route. Everything was on time and seemingly with a purpose. Full credit to them, but it's just one game. Dave and I will preview next week's games in a second. Before we do that, though, I know, Dave, you want to break down your power rankings, and something tells me you're going to have a shift in hierarchy. So real quick, 60 seconds, give me your power rankings. You don't have to break them down, just give them to me.
Moving up to the number 1 spot is the team we just were talking about, the Wesleyan Cardinals. Moving up to number 2 by default, the Tufts Jumbos. So this week it'll be a battle between number 1 and number 2 in Medford for the night game. Number 3, off of that upset of Trinity, is the Colby Mules. Slipping down to number 4 is the Trinity Bantams. They were our former number 1 team. Number 5 is the Middlebury Panthers. They were our former number 2 team. Number 6 is the Williams Eefs. Number 7 is the Bates Bobcats. Number 8 is the Amherst Mammoths. Number 9 is the Bowden Polar Bears. And our 10th ranked team this week are the Hamilton Continentals.
I could give some pushback, but I'll leave that to the viewers. Please leave your comments below. I've got some thoughts, but I won't share them with you right now. We'll take a quick break. We'll get back. Dave and I will preview week 2 of 9 weeks. Back with more right after this on your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Yep. This episode of 9 Weeks NESCAC Football is sponsored by Sloan Walsh LLP. On the gridiron, victories come from preparation, smart play calling, and a defense you can trust. For 91 years, Sloan Walsh has brought that same approach to the legal field, especially when the game is toughest in insurance disputes. They know how to protect the end zone, move the chains, and deliver results when it matters most. From complex litigation to safeguarding what matters to you, their team is built to go the distance. Sloan Walsh LLP, trusted counsel, championship effort. Visit sloanwalsh.com to learn more. Transform your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They collaborate with teams and parent groups to create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. From personalized parents' lanyards to giant heads to senior banners that cheer on your favorite players, their custom print pieces capture the spirit and passion of your team. Their beautifully designed programs are packed full of essential information that every fan eagerly anticipates, making them cherished keepsakes for supporters and players alike. With over 25 years' experience, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team's story to life in vibrant print, ensuring every game day is one to remember with Game Day Sports programs. Welcome back to 9 Weeks Unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast as we continue to break down week 1 of what was a wild week, what we expected in the NESCAC. We welcome in the head coach of the Colby Mules, Coach Cosgrove, coming off of a win that shocked a lot of people in the NESCAC. Some of us not so much. I had a pretty good vibe that you guys were going to be right in that football game, and watching that game, Coach, and seeing the way your team closed out the game, it was really a lot of things that you guys have hung your hat on, which is a ferocious defensive effort. You look at the stats, 7 times you got to the quarterback, 4 interceptions. Obviously, as a defensive-minded guy, you probably like winning that way. I'm sure there's some things you want to clean up offensively, but to beat a team that you guys haven't beaten in basically 3 decades, it's got to feel pretty good after all the work you guys have done in the offseason to come away with a W in week 1.
Yeah, it certainly did. Our guys worked very hard. That's the one thing about the opening game. It's a target game for you through the offseason. And we felt like we've gotten closer to Colby with Trinity over the years. I shared with you that my first game against Trinity, when I broke in 35-0 at the half, we were down. So we've come a long way to be able to enter a game and feel like we had a shot. I think it felt a little different because Trinity had some holes to fill in their lineup. They've had such great success the last couple of years with the talent they've had there. And, of course, the quarterback position was one we were unsure about who would play, who would start. And we felt like whoever was somebody that we wanted to heat up a little bit and see if he could stand up to the pressure and stand up to the things that we were scheming to do. And we found some things that were successful. We went back to them, and guys responded very well. The turning point of the game was the interception return, just something that just happened in the third quarter and really gave us a spark and some momentum. And I was really excited when we went to 75 yards for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. When we really had a nice drive with some big plays in there, but also some gritty runs, and we got that separating touchdown. And you saw how we played at the end. You mentioned last 3 series, we had 2 3-and-outs, and then we intercepted on the final drop there. So it really was a standout performance by our defense, number one, but also we got enough done on offense to get a win.
Yeah, Coach, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions. These are statistics that you normally don't see against Trinity Bantam squad here in the NESCAC. Hats off to you. Of course, Cooper Bunnell, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, sophomore from my home state in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
From, I think, Rumson Fairhaven, I believe. NESCAC Defensive Player of the Week had a hell of a game. I think 3 sacks, 3 TFLs, 3.5 maybe. Hell of a game there. Talk a little bit more about the defense. What did you do differently this year versus prior years? What did you do the same? What did you see that sort of allowed you to take advantage of the schemes on the Trinity side?
We feel like we have a really good group of fronts in our front 7, our linebackers and our defensive line. We have 2 what I think FCS bodies, and Jack Mullen and Josh Ionsi playing our ends, and they're both 6'4 plus, and they've got tremendous wingspan. They get great push in the pocket. Cooper kind of benefits from that because he's the quick guy in the inside, so to speak. We moved Cooper outside a little bit to the end position as well during the game and get some reps out there. And he's just got a great quickness to him. The linebackers are Declan McNamara, we played quarterback for us last year. We moved him on the defense halfway through the season last fall. He's really come a long way, and we did a lot of things with Declan to try to take away some of their strengths. They're a great receiver, O'Brien. We really wanted to get a matchup there with him, and we just executed very well. We had a good plan, and the guys executed, and you know how it can build as the game goes along. You get confidence, and I think our pass rush had created some uncertainty in the quarterback in their minds, and we felt like they were antsy and maybe looking at the rush a little bit as the game wore on, so we kept at it, and it worked for us.
Coach, we focused in on your defensive effort, but I think it needs to be pointed out that offensively, you guys really struggled, in particular in the first half on the side of the ball, turning the ball over. Talk about you guys fall behind early. You're turning the ball over a little bit. That puts even more pressure on your defense. But how were you able to settle your team down at halftime? And I would imagine the message to your offense is let's take care of the football. Our defense is doing just fine, and we'll figure out a way to, obviously, a defensive coach says, let's try to score on defense. But more importantly, let's not give them an opportunity to score, right? Because that game could have shifted very easily when you're turning the ball over 3 times on your end, right?
Yeah, I've never gone into halftime of a game when we've thrown a team that I've coached has thrown 3 interceptions and had a block punt. But we reciprocate. Every time we were put in that challenge, the defense got the ball back. 2 plays after the block punt, they're on our 20-yard line going in. They fumble. We recover it. We strip the quarterback the ball on a QB run, and we get the ball back. So we just situationally we stepped up. We responded to it. We run a drill here called sudden change in practice, where all of a sudden we're going the other way, and the defense has got to come out. And I know everybody does it, but we really have done a lot of that. And to have that spark when you come on the field and be able to, as a defense, stand up to an offense that's got great position, and for an offense to respond when they've given that opportunity. So that kind of fit into some things we practiced, and really good to see. All we had to really tell our offense was let's control the football. Ball security it's a key in football. You turn it over, you're going to lose a game. And we were able to settle that down in the second half. We made some wise decisions at the quarterback position on our end of just tucking it and run. We got a little QB run involved in it as well. We had a nice 75-yard drive at the start of the fourth quarter to give us that separating score from the 7-6 that it was. And then we really played great defense down the stretch. Our fourth quarter on defense was outstanding.
Shift gears a little bit here. This week, you travel to Williamstown for Battle of the Unbeatens, 1-0. I'm sure you like that feeling. Little different look with the Williams College Eves. Obviously, they like to run the ball. At least that's the tendency in week 1. I think they threw something like 8 passes the whole day. They've got a converted tight end at quarterback and Owen Johansson out of Northport, Long Island. They got John Orris at tailback running the ball. No secret what they're going to do. 3 yards in a cloud of dust for Williams. And then obviously on defense, they've got some tough kids on defense. Of course, Luke Mangini in the middle there. And then they've got some other good players on the defensive line, Scala and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about the game coming up this week? You're heading on the road for the first time, the long drive to Williamstown.
Yeah, excited for the opportunity. We've never won out there, so this would be at the top of our list of challenges, is just to get the win on the road in a very tough place to play against a very physical, tough football team. It's very well coached. We have great respect for the program. When I first got in the league, they were the kingpins at that time with the great seasons that they had in 19 and 21, and that was something that was, I thought, probably the most impressive team I've seen in the league, with the quarterback and the wideout, especially taking advantage of their run and play action game. We certainly suspect that they're going to be ready for us. They'll be a well-prepared team, as we suspect. And for us, it's, what is that expression? Stay humble and hungry for what's next
Right.
in front of you. Sometimes we have to shake off the cobwebs that this is a fluke. It can be us if we keep consistent and we stay on our plan to prepare each and every week to win. And I think our talent has grown in the program to allow us to think more like that than we had in the past, and certainly an opportunity to test it against a team that has always been a great football team in this league.
Yeah, I think everybody was happy to see Bobby Maymoran and Frank Stoller graduate. That's for sure.
That was a good team.
Yeah.
Coach, imagine that you talk about staying humble and not believing the hype or believing in the things that you win. I think in many ways, if you guys would have beaten Trinity 42-6 and your quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and you didn't turn the ball over, that would have been more of a concern, right? But at least you guys have some clear focus, I imagine. Like, as great as your defense played, the other side of the ball, you have a whole focus on, because you're not going to be able to win every week that way. As much as you are a defensive guy, you got to figure out ways to have your offense not only win you games, but not cost you games. So I'm sure that's the ideal scenario for a team getting a big win. Still plenty of tape to fix.
Thank you for giving me credit for being a defensive guy, but I'm an old quarterback, my man. So
yeah, but but that's a man that can appreciate that. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. I think everything that I've thought about defensively, philosophy-wise, having played quarterback, is get the guy to look at the rush, get the guy to be on his heels, get the guy to feel the pressure that you put on him. And I think that's the position has become the kingpin in all sports. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't got a shot. And I think that's something that everybody in this game knows. But going back to what, certainly we have a lot to work on, and especially when on the offensive side of the ball, we were 2 for 13 on third down. So there were situational things, performance things we've got to do. Special teams, we had a punt block. That's something that now makes you nervous the rest of the year because it's on tape and somebody can come and get you. Our defense, sure, as well as we thought they played, there were opportunities out there that were missed. Guys cut free and maybe run a little open that their quarterback missed out on. So there's a lot of work to be done. And in general, you make that big step of improvement from game 1 to game 2 just because you've waited all year to get something on tape that means something. Your scrimmages in the preseason, it's you against your own, and it's not as convincing as far as the talent level and the performances as it is when you go up against somebody like Trinity. So we have a reason to feel good about some of the things we did, but a lot of work to do, like everybody does at this time of year. This is just a start, and if you want to have the kind of finish that you aspire to, then you've got to have that gritty work ethic every week of just performing at the highest level you can.
And not to be too hard on the offense, just looking at some of the things, Miles did a lot of good things, it looked like, in that game. He really was able to get the ball to Jack Nye effectively, who had a really nice game, just under 100 yards, 7 catches. And you look at, he did throw 3 interceptions, but he was 16 for 26. That's pretty efficient. So it's just about maybe not trying to force the football and make sure that your reads are correct and understanding what you're seeing in front of you. And, he's been in and out of the position over the last year or two and probably settling into the game. Is that about what you saw?
But 2 of the interceptions were on him. He was forced. The other one, a receiver slipped and fell on him, so the throw went. But the 2 of them, he's very accountable as a quarterback. He knows those things, and we've seen him grow. He got hurt in the Trinity game as a sophomore 2 years ago. So last year was his first year as a starter. So he's made tremendous strides as a quarterback and always ready to learn and advance himself. And he had a pretty good day out there in the practice field today because this is real important to him.
So last question for me, Coach. We've got 1 of 9 in the books. I'm sure you've seen at least 4 teams play. It seemed like week 1, there was a lot of sloppiness out there, a lot of penalties, a lot of turnovers, missed tackles, drop balls. What sort of your thinking around the league, looking at you probably watch more than just the 4 teams, but thinking around the league, and what's your sort of commentary on why we saw a lot of maybe not as the level of play that we're used to seeing in the NESCAC? I know there's a lot of new starters, a lot of new QBs, a lot of that going on too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
As far as the preparation that goes into the opening game, I still don't feel like we have the amount of time necessary in the preseason. I'm more nervous here at Colby than I was in my 25 years at Maine about the opening game, because the preseason is so short and there's just so much to the game and it's advanced so much that keeping up with it, you always feel like you haven't touched a particular situation, and I think sometimes you have to go so fast and be mindful of the physical and mental well-being of the players to be ready to play that for a game. So you at times feel just not as prepared as you need to be. And hence, I think that some of the things that we could have, with a few more practices, spent some more time on, and a lot of them are just fundamentals. Ball security, the penalties are, we have a couple scrimmages. We bring officials in to do that in the preseason, but I think it just feels like that we need more time. The league, and as you advance forward and think about being a playoff team next year, that'll be a factor. It'll be something that needs to be considered, I think, because the league is getting a chance to step up into the big boy world of playoffs, and that's exciting. But we need to have a great representation, or that's not going to cut it for the competition level. But I do think, too, that the league itself is always going to be the league that I have always coached in, to play the next game. Just play the next game and take them one at a time. That was the ledger up at Maine. It'll be the ledger here as long as I'm here. It's just move on to the next play, move on to the next game, win or lose, because it's the dramatic feeling difference from a win to a loss it's amazing. And for us, last Saturday, we got to experience the magic of a win. And shoot, you want to do that every week, don't you? So it's a nice taste to have, a nice thing to work with during the course of the week. When you win, your players are more attentive in practice. Their buy-in is complete. We got it done. Let's keep listening. On the other side of the ledger is when you're not successful and, somebody's questioning something. I can promise you that, the way they think nowadays.
Coach Cosgrove, listen, your insight and your knowledge and your experience is invaluable. We appreciate you taking the time. Listen, there are only 9 opportunities, and you guys were successful in the first one, regardless of who the opponent was. Obviously, it was a really big opponent. It's a really big win, but every win in this league, as we know, is just as difficult as the next, and you guys will certainly have a challenge in front of you on Saturday. We wish you the best of luck. As always, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know you mentioned there's not a lot of it, so we appreciate every moment that you spend with us, and we certainly have enjoyed getting to know you and hearing more from you. Best of luck in Williamstown, and who knows, you keep this going. You can talk to us next week too if you want, and we'll keep this going as long as you want, Coach. You're probably sick of us at this point, but we certainly appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys checking in, and I look forward to talking more.
All right,
thanks,
that is
thanks, Coach.
All right,
Coach
guys.
Cosgrove, the head coach of the 1-0 Colby Mules, as they get ready to take on the Williams Eves next week. We'll be back with more 9 weeks brought to you by Sloan Walsh and Game Time Sports right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks, an unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, along with Dave Bagatelle, Chris Grace back with you, and we welcome in Wesleyan signal caller Matt Fitzsimons, who is coming off of a big week 1 victory over Middlebury, 31-17. Matt, first of all, welcome into our podcast. As Dave says, the big show. It's great to have you. It's great to have you on. First and foremost, as someone who called the game and watched, we didn't know going into the week whether you would get the majority of the reps or whether Chase would get the majority of the reps, but it really seemed as though when you got your opportunity in the second quarter, you were ready for the moment. Your poise was evident, the way you orchestrated the offense, and really led your team in every facet to a great victory in week 1.
Yeah, going in, I was a little unsure of how things were going to pan out, whether it was going to be me or whether it was going to be Chase, but obviously things worked out well. I'm just glad that we got a victory on our home field.
Yeah, and the thing is, anyone who's ever been in one of those situations, you don't want to call it a quarterback controversy, obviously, because you guys both played in the game and you both bring different things to the table. But do you think in some ways it maybe helped you to not play the first couple series, to really watch from the sideline and be able to settle in? And then once you got out there, you saw a little bit what the defense was doing, and it gave you an opportunity from a different perspective to be able to get in there and do something a little different?
Yeah, definitely. It was a situation I've never really been in, but it was definitely interesting to see that the game kind of started out from the sideline and just see their coverages and how I was looking up front and stuff like that. And then I was just ready for my opportunity when my number was going to be called.
So, Matt, just a couple of the stats from the day. I think you were 15-22, 2 touchdowns. It was a hell of a day, and you seem to have a really great connection with your new freshman wide receiver, Dante Kelly, freshman out of Connecticut. Obviously, you're out of Westchester, which we can talk a little bit about later. But talk about Dante, talk about your other receivers, your connectivity with them. Was it evident in practice that you were going to have that sort of connection with those guys?
Yeah, Dante in particular, we knew as soon as he got on campus he was going to be special. We knew we had to get him the ball in the right spots, and I thought the coaches did a great job of letting him put the league on notice and just showing him what he's all about.
You also had a great day connecting with some of your other receivers, and obviously you've got Blake Newcomb, and you've got seems 2 or 3 really great tight ends, Capuano, and really good tight end situation. How has that sort of how's the week of practice going? Is that sort of continuing? And by the way, I had one other follow-up question once you answer that question, but why don't you we'll handle that question first.
Yeah. Yeah, Blake's my guy. He's actually my roommate on campus, one of my roommates, and I knew, like, everyone knows, like, he was a big part of our offense last year, and he's been taking a bigger role in the receiver room this year. And he's another guy, just got to get the ball in his hands. And then talking about our tight ends, it was definitely cool to see them get involved. The first 2 years I've been here, we didn't have a lot of production from that room, and it was definitely cool. It was very awesome to throw a touchdown to a tight end on Saturday. Yeah.
No, I also thought that what was interesting is that what I thought actually shifted the game was the first series that you came into the game, they leaned on your legs, and we thought it was going to be a reverse of that. So in many ways, we were expecting when you were in the game, it was going to be more of a passing situation, and that kind of really settled the offense in. Is that something that you're comfortable doing, or is that something that you do because the defense is giving to you, or is that something that you feel like maybe people are sleeping just because you got a big frame, 6'3" frame, but you can run the ball a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think people, like, it's pretty obvious that I'm a thrower and everyone knows I'm a thrower, but it's definitely something that I think teams and people might sleep on me for. So I'm definitely comfortable getting put in those situations. And I think it definitely helped me settle in. I think my first play was a designed run.
Correct.
It just helped me get my, like, feet wet in the game and just settle in a little bit.
Yeah, I thought also something that was real interesting was it seemed to me like throughout the course of the game, you were really staying comfortable in the pocket. Your offensive line was fantastic, but it seemed like you didn't force the ball one time during the game. Talk about that, like that internal clock. How were you comfortable enough to just trust what you were seeing? Really, your first big time game action in a big game like that. How were you able to stay so poised and really just take your checkdowns while they were there and not fight that urge to force the ball into traffic and try to do too much?
Yeah, our O-line played incredible. I just wanted to say that for the most part. And then I think it was it was either the first, I think it was the second drive actually. Coach called a deep shot play with a check down, and I went through my progression. Didn't exactly what I saw, but I had all day back there. It was very
Dumped it off to the left side in the flat.
dumped it off to the left side.
Yeah.
And after that play, I realized our O-line can handle these guys, and it just helped me settle in again, and I felt very comfortable, especially because Middlebury was going and we knew they were gonna drop a lot of guys back. So that was part of our game plan, is just take what they give us.
Yeah, it's the offense. I have to agree. The offensive line played great. I can't remember the last time we didn't let up a sack and no holding calls that I can recall.
No
either.
holding calls, no sacks, no turnovers.
Yeah, the offensive line played really well. But we talked about the receivers. Obviously, you and Chase both played very well at the quarterback position. But you've got a bevy, really 3 fantastic running backs as well. So that's a threat. Teams have to respect that as well. You guys can obviously throw the ball, but they got to respect the run.
Yeah, exactly. We have 3, 4 really good running backs that have seen big minutes over the past years. I think it's got to be a big part of our offense this year, and I think we showed that we are able to run the ball and just take whatever the defense is giving you. Like I said, they were a big drop back and cover the pass type of team, so we had to be able to run the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, to Dave's point, I thought that you guys had great balance in the game. So hold on, Dave and I will talk more about this game as the podcast goes on, but for while we have your focus. So you go into week 1, you don't know what your role is definitely going to be. You're going to play, but you don't know how that's going to go. It could have gone many different ways. So now after having the success, how are you prepping for week 2? Obviously a huge game against one of, if not the most talented teams in terms of their entire roster in the league. It's on the road. It's at night. Traditionally been a very tough game for Wesleyan on the road at night. How are you guys prepping this week? What's the week of practice been like so far? We're right now, as we're recording this, it's Wednesday. So probably one more full day of practice and then a walkthrough left to go. How are you guys prepping for this game right now? What's the mindset been like in practice?
Yeah, so for me, my mindset is always the same, no matter what day of practice it is or who we're playing. I think I'm very poised and calm to the team, and I'd like to lead by example. But Tufts is going to be a crazy game. We know that 2 years ago we went up there and we got destroyed, and everyone's aware that they're going to be hungry after we beat them last year. And like I said before, we know that we could win this game, and we're going in just like we're treating it like any other game, any other Saturday. We got to go get a job done on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a great attitude. And yeah, Matt, you were there and I was there 2 years ago, and we can't forget about that. Hopefully it's going to be a lot different this time around. So you're from Somers, New York. You're in the tri-state area. Mets, Yankees, Giants, Jets, Knicks.
Easy now.
Let's hear it, Matt. Who are we rooting for? Yeah.
Love that question. So I'm a Giant guy.
Yes. Love it.
My dad is actually a Mets fan. He was born in Queens. And my mom's a Yankee fan, but I roll with my dad on that type of stuff. So I'm a big Met guy, and then Knicks, Rangers as well.
Awesome. That's an unusual mix. You don't see many Mets in that mix, in that combo. But that's
Hey, Dave, we take them where we can get them, brother. We take them where we can.
Hey, I'm a Yankee fan, but I was born in Flushing.
That means you're a hypocrite.
I like the Yanks. I go to a lot of Yanks games because a bunch of my buddies are.
I love it. And Somers, for those of you that don't know, Matt's from Somers, New York. Great spot, very good sports, obviously, good football, good lacrosse, right? Up there in northern Westchester. So it's a great place.
So, Matt, last thing before we get you out of here, what do you think is going to be the key for you guys? I think from my perspective, if you take care of the football, you have enough on the defensive side of the ball. But as your offense continues to evolve, there's weapons out there, right? So how do you guys maintain that same focus that you showed last week, but maybe a little bit more of a killer instinct in terms of taking whatever opportunities you have to really stretch a game out? And because like last week's game, it was a pretty comfortable victory, and those don't come. It was really one of the only, if not the only, in all the NESCAC last week. So how do you guys try to lean on a team when you have a chance and become a dynamic offense? Because I think all the makings are there for it. But
yeah, I think we definitely showed to ourselves that we have what it takes to be a great team in this league. And like you said before, it was a very comfortable win. We were ahead most of the game. We didn't have to claw from behind. And I think this week, like, stuff's going to go wrong. And I think the biggest test for us is going to be when stuff does hit the fan a little bit, we're going to have to bounce back. And not every drive is going to be a touchdown. Not every drive is going to lead to points. And when that stuff goes wrong, we got to just be able to bounce back and get back on the horse.
Yeah. Listen, Matt, we appreciate it. We know you got a lot of stuff going on. We appreciate you taking some time. I know Dave will be there on Saturday. I will not, but I will be watching from afar. I will certainly be interested in seeing what the game looks like on Saturday night. But best of luck. Get back to your studies. Get back to your prep work. And good luck on Saturday night. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Let's go, Mets.
Good luck on Saturday, Matt.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Question: how do I watch? Could I
YouTube? Yeah.
How would I be able to listen to this?
YouTube and Facebook, and we're going to be on Apple pretty soon. We're on Spotify also. So we'll get you the link, man.
We'll tell the guests 9 weeks NESCAC on YouTube.
Love it. I love it.
That's it.
Everyone's doing it. Spread the word. Have them click and subscribe. I don't care if they like, but have them subscribe. That's the way to do it. And Dave will send you the links to that as well.
Thank you.
Listen, that's Matt Fitzsimons. He is the signal caller for Wesleyan, coming off a big week 1 victory. We will take a quick break. We'll get back and continue to preview week 2 of 9 weeks at Unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Back with more right after this, brought to you by Game Time Sports and Sloan Walsh. Welcome back to 9 weeks, Unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you by our friends at Sloan Walsh, as well as Game Time Sports, along with Dave Bagatelle. Chris Grace back with you as we get ready for week 2 and preview this week's games. Listen, this is a pretty competitive slate. A lot of unanswered questions and a lot of interesting matchups here. We'll just go right down the list. First and foremost, Hamilton and Amherst. Listen, Dave, I think I'll defer to you on your point spreads and everything else, but I think we look at all these games this week, and all these point spreads I think are going to be right in around that 7-point mark, because there's a lot of competitive matchups right here. First and foremost, where do you see this from a point spread perspective? And then tell me where you think this matchup's going to go in Amherst.
Yeah, I don't know who ends up drawing the short straw and has to go watch Hamilton play at Amherst, but I'm glad it's not me. This game is, wow, could end up 0-0.
Hold on, 20-second timeout. Hold on. First of all, we are a podcast for all the NESCAC football teams. Hamilton put 24 points last week, and Amherst put up 23 points.
I know. I
hear
you.
Check yourself, okay? Let's reset.
We'll step back for a sec. But
give me the point spread.
I've got, because they're playing in Amherst, in keeping with what you said, I've got Amherst given 6 points.
Okay.
And I think Amherst wins this game 17-10. They win by 7. They cover the spread and even up their record at 1-1. This is a battle of 2-0-1 teams. Hamilton lost last week, obviously, against Williams. Amherst lost to Bates. I think I'll give the edge to the team playing at home. Really contrasting styles. Hamilton, I think you're just gonna see them air it out all day. You're gonna see Curzum. I think Boynton gets back in the game. I think Amherst is gonna try and do ball control, run the ball a lot. I do the Amherst defense. I think the Amherst defense will get some turnovers here and will hold Hamilton to fewer points, and then they end up scoring, which gets them the win.
This is really a question more for the consumer here, but I'll let you be the consumer. If the consumer wants Chris Grace to pick all these games, I will. But I'm only going to do that if that's what the people want.
Hey, Chris, you can stay away from the Wesleyan game because you called.
Well, I'm not calling it this way.
So I think you should give.
I'm gonna let it go. Listen, for all the coaches out there, I try to be the neutral one. Also trying to be entertaining. I think Hamilton's going to win this game. I got Hamilton 24-21. So that's where I'm at. I think that Amherst has to rip off some Band-Aids after blowing a lead, and I think that Hamilton scored on their last 2 possessions of the game, and they're going to ride some momentum here. Could be wrong, but that's just the way I see this game going. Let's keep it moving.
Keep in mind, just as to our fans, I was 4-1 last week. That's all I'll say.
Keep in mind, I was 5-0. So I did.
And by the way, our friends at the D3 football were 1-4 last week. Picking NESCAC games, right?
I don't know what friends you're speaking of. I don't have any friends, Dave. You're my only friend.
There you go.
Bates and Trinity. Let's keep it moving. Bobcats coming off of a comeback win over Amherst. Continue to try their upward climb, but things get a little tougher. They're going to face a very angry, fighting Rooster Coop in Trinity as they have to deal with the Bantams in the Vegas Gold in Hartford, taking place at the Coop, 1 p.m. in Hartford. What are your thoughts on this one?
Just a couple of little NESCAC man tidbits. Bates hasn't beaten Trinity since 1979. Granted, they don't play every year.
Yeah, that's a lot, though, because they play almost every year. That's a lot.
And Trinity hasn't been 0-2 in a season since 1995. They haven't started 0-2. So they're 0-1 right now. We're just saying. And then last year, by the way, the last time they lost opening day, they lost to Tufts in 2019. The next week, they bounced back in game 2 against Bowden to win at home 61-7.
Okay.
So just a couple of tidbits. So I think you get the sense where I'm feeling. There's a lot of questions for Trinity. Who's the quarterback? What's going on with the running game? Can the Bantams avoid the turnover? Can the offensive line open holes for the running backs and protect the QB? Who's the second wide receiver for O'Brien? However, look, Coach Devaney's been here before. They've still got a lot of talented guys. They've got good running backs. They've got a good receiver. There's a lot of guys back on the defense. I think Colby is a little bit of a different team than Bates is. I think Bates hangs close for a while. They are better. They're not going to get completely blown off the field. But I have Trinity giving 14 points at home where they really don't lose very often. And I've got Trinity winning this game 31-13.
Okay, 31-13. I can certainly see where you're coming from when discussing all the factors that would obviously go into it. I thought your projection was going to be a 14-point line. I think we're going to know probably more about Trinity than we are going to know about Bates at the end of this game. I think the Bobcats are going to give you what they're going to give you, and Trinity's going to have to figure out a way to game plan to get the ball in the hands of their weapons while alleviating the obvious mistakes. Now, can Bates pressure them into situations like Colby was going to be able to? No. And I'm telling you, last year, there was one defense I saw all year that had the ability to look like a different level defense, and that was Colby. I still think that's the case. I think they're different on the defensive side of the ball. They look different. They approach the game differently. So I tend to agree with you. Trinity has to get things figured out. I would be shocked if they didn't, but I'm really interested to see what happens. But I'm with you on this one. I think Trinity wins. But listen, when you see a team only score 6 points in the first game, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say Trinity wins by double figures. I can see Trinity winning this game, I don't know, 21-14. So that's where I'll go with that.
Okay.
All right, next on the docket, Bowden and Middlebury, two teams coming off of disappointing efforts. Middlebury back at home. Bowden trying to find their way. I'm going to do something a little different here. Let's play a little get inside Dave Bagatelle's head. I'm going to say Dave Bagatelle puts the line on this one at Middlebury minus 13.5.
Close, but a little higher. I've got Middlebury giving 17. And let me give you another little historical tidbit. The Polar Bears have only beaten Middlebury once in history in Vermont in 1990.
Wow.
So think about that for a second. I look.
This is a league of the haves and the have-nots, though, Dave. So we're seeing a lot of these stats, which really speaks to all the.
Yeah.
We're going to do this podcast in 4 years, and all those stats are going to be gone because
I understand that, but I'm going to have fun with it for now.
no, it's wild to think about. It's almost like the last 2 decades of everyone excluding. When you bring in Maine and you bring in
Hamilton,
yeah,
right.
And you can it's almost 2 different conferences, right?
Yeah, there's been a real divide there. But look, Bowden's offense, if I hadn't have watched it, I wouldn't have believed it. They were really.
It'll be interesting to see how they approach it because Coach Hammer was pretty bullish on saying that he had his guy at quarterback. But if you recall last year at the end of the year, they mixed it up and they found a little bit of success. So it'll be interesting to see in week 2, not just with Bowden, but with every team, how patient the coaches are, because we talked about the quarterback transition. That was the theme of our podcast last week. It'll be interesting to see how much patience they have with that quarterback room. I think there's only one, realistically, there's probably not just the teams that won, even of the teams that lost. I think all those coaches are going to have questions. Other than Middlebury, all those coaches have questions about who their quarterback is.
No question. But I think
Amherst knows who their quarterback is. But
yeah. I think this isn't going to tell us a lot about Middlebury because I'm not really bullish right now on Bowden based on the game I watched. Look, maybe they'll come out and be completely different this week. Although, look, they're traveling to Middlebury. It's a trudge. It's Middlebury's home opener. Middlebury plays well there. I think Middlebury wins this one 28-7. I think they bounce back. I think Moran plays better. Of course, Bowden plays that all gas, no break defense. They'll be blitzing every down, but I think that'll allow Middlebury to break a couple plays. I think Bowden does score. They'll get a touchdown late to get off the scoring schneid, but I think Middlebury wins by more than 17 in this game.
I think what's really interesting is this is a game I vividly remember watching last year, and we saw this a little bit last week with Middlebury, is that when you can get Moran off schedule and get him out of the pocket or get him where he's moving his feet, he's a completely different quarterback. If Bowden is able to get pressure in the backfield, I think they can make him uncomfortable, but I'm with you that I think that Bowden has to figure out a way to find a playmaker on offense. They've got to find a way to get something going. It's impressive that they held Tufts to just 13 points. I know you talk about that game and how sluggish it might have been. In and of itself, Tufts has enough weapons. That's a pretty impressive thing. So there's enough guys there on defense. But I tend to agree with you that Middlebury is a proud enough program with enough guys there that they'll figure out a way. I still don't see it being more than a 1 or 2 score game, though. But I think we're aligned on that one. So far, have we disagreed? No, just on the one. Yeah, we disagreed on the one.
Just on the one. Yep.
Okay. So next up, Williamstown, 2 unbeatens, Colby and Williams. The Mules looking for a rare 2-0 start. Coach Cosgrove was, I think, very cautious in his moving forward from last week and not getting too wrapped up in what they accomplished. Although it was an historic victory, there's a brand new challenge, and it doesn't get much tougher than going to Williamstown in this league. And for the East, their home opener, it'll be interesting. And the contrast in styles between playing Trinity and playing Williams is pretty drastic. But one thing that's pretty similar is that like both teams have grown men at a lot of positions and guys that look a little different. So I think if you're going to say that, I think this week there's probably one clear game of the week, but there's two games that maybe right below it. And this is one of those two games that maybe if one game is prime time, these games easily might be prime time on a different network, let's just say, because this could be a really good game. Or maybe it won't be a pretty game, but it's a really good game.
Do you want to guess Dave spread?
Yeah. Dave spread on this one is Williams -4.
Wow. You are good. I said Williams -3. So You're right on. I think had this been played in Waterville, I would have had Colby -3, but we'll give Williams home field. With that being said, I think this is going to be a really interesting game. This is a game that I will definitely be watching on the replay. I think
why not live?
It might be a little bit busy. What's the distance from Williamstown to Medford? You know, how long would it take?
No, why not live? You don't have to watch.
I'm sorry. You're right. I am going to watch the game.
You have a 6-hour window, Dave. You're watching 4 games at 1 o'clock. What are you talking about?
I forgot about that. The tailgate starts in Medford, so I will be watching. I'm going to have the iPad and the laptop and the big screen TV, so I'm going to watch.
And the phone. There you go. You got it all covered.
I got it all covered. I don't know if I really want to watch the Amherst game. Sorry. I will be watching this game live. I think this is going to be a super interesting game. Really looking forward to see if Colby can put together back-to-back defensive games like they did. Williams looks like the real deal running the ball. That's going to present an interesting challenge for Colby's defense. If Colby can shut down the run on Williams, they're going to have a tough time because they don't throw the ball a lot. They have two-way player playing receiver. Johansson's really not a thrower. They've got other guys that I guess they can put in there to throw the balls. And then on Colby's offense, I'd like to see if they can get something going. Who's going to run the ball for Colby? They didn't really have a running back emerge. The quarterback threw a couple picks himself. So I have this game being a relatively low-scoring game. As old school NESCAC, I have Colby with the upset because Williams is given 3. I have Colby with the W in Williamstown, 14-7.
Wow.
I'm jumping on the Mules bandwagon.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, we're on opposite sides here. I think Ophelia's cow is going to be ringing that bell. I think Williams is too experienced. I think they don't make mistakes, right? You can't overlook the fact that Colby made a lot of mistakes in that game. As Coach Cosgrove noted, you throw 3 interceptions in the first half, you have a punt blocked, and you're only down 6 points. That doesn't happen every week. That doesn't happen most weeks. Williams has a ton of experience. And I think most importantly, Williams isn't going to turn the ball over. So how's Colby going to score points? I like Williams to win this game. I think maybe 20-10, but I'm fairly bullish on the East to win this game. But we'll see. This will be fun. And if I'm wrong, then I won't pick games ever again this week.
You're picking. This is more fun when you're picking games.
Okay.
We don't agree on everything either.
Yeah, no, we don't. But I do Colby a lot. I just think this is not a great matchup for them because Colby wants a team that's going to drop their quarterback back, a chance for them to get a team that sacks the quarterback 7 times, forces fumbles, forces pressures that lead to interceptions. And when Williams is playing on the front foot, which is the way they play, they're not an option team per se, but the way that they play in many ways, it echoes that because they're taking a lot of risk out of the equation. But we'll see what happens. One last game, probably of no interest to Dave, but it's an annual night game featuring Tufts and Wesleyan. Yes, Wesleyan, right?
Yes.
So Tufts last year, Wesleyan took down the Jumbos, and that was the difference between a NESCAC championship for Wesleyan or a NESCAC championship for Tufts. It didn't seem like it at the time, but that's what it ended up being for Coach Savetti's team. It seems like when these two teams meet, it always feels a little bit more important because they do play at night, which for this league is such a rarity. And for these two teams, it's a rarity. It feels more important, and this will be no different. I think for Wesleyan, former Wesleyan football coach and current athletic director Mike Whalen and I on the game last week were speaking about when you win something, there's difference between programs that win and feel entitled and programs that win and they're like, well, we're going to reload. And there's players like, for instance, a Matt Fitzsimons, for instance, the guy you mentioned, AJ Morris. There's guys that were there and were bit part players and were part of the program. And if whether they're going to establish themselves and take ownership and turn it into a legacy program. What I saw last week was that Wesleyan is one step into that. Coach DeCenzo has been there long enough now where they are one step into that. But in order to be that, they have to show up with their thermoses and their lunch pails and get ready for a 60-minute battle against Tufts. And this will be that because every time these two teams play, it is that. The Cardinals, when was the last time the Cardinals won in Medford, Dave?
4 years ago, I believe. I think Wes is 4-1 the last 5 times they played, something like that. I think that was the David Estevez show. He had 600 yards of total offense that game. I have to go check. We'll check that.
I think it's gone half and half, but I could be wrong about that. But the point is that this game, to me, is worth 2 games because where they're at in the standings right now, the winner of this game is going to have a big leg up on the rest of the league. So it's a big one. You know, obviously I didn't see the Tufts Bowden game like you did, but Tufts has to figure some things out offensively. But Wesleyan has to listen. I've seen games where Wesleyan last year against Middlebury, Wesleyan played a perfect game, and then a week or 2 later they lost at home to Bates. Those things can shift very quickly if you start believing in your own hype. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm really curious to see what you think is going to happen, knowing you would have this game as I'd say you have this game. I know you have this game as a pick'em.
I do not have it as a pick'em. I do not. I have this game as Tufts giving 3.
Okay. Wow. My baby boy's all grown up. Look at you.
But first and foremost, because you're challenging my memory, the last time Wesleyan beat Tufts was 4 years ago. The final score was Wesleyan in Medford was 36-35. Wesleyan went to 5-0. Tufts, by the way, went to 0-5 on that day.
Okay, so that was a different Tufts team.
Wesleyan had on that game 618 yards of total offense.
Yeah, that was 2019.
Led by 21. Led by my man David Estevez, who had 270 yards passing.
So the final score of that game was 35-34, you said?
36-35.
So a 5-0 Wesleyan team beat an 0-5 Tufts team by 1 point, which speaks to how hard it is to win on the road in Medford.
Yeah, Michael Berluti went nuts that game. He had 314 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and he ran for over 100 yards. Of course, they had Phil Lutz, who almost made the NFL that day. They had Berluti, they had Tyler Johnson running the ball. But Estevez that day not only had 270 yards passing, he had 204 yards rushing.
Yeah.
And of course,
but those games are just crazy. I've done a handful.
No, that was one of the craziest games I ever saw. Just unbelievable. But 2 years ago, of course, and I hope that Wesleyan does not forget about this game. 2 years ago, Wesleyan went up there, night game, 6:30 start, and lost to Tufts 49-14. It's games like that I hope that Wesleyan, I should say, remembers, because that one's got to stick in your craw. That was the one loss in the last 5 times they've played. But
that is, by the way, if you're listening at home, that is the third we and Dave will be making a donation to charity on behalf of 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast.
I will be. I apologize. So
put it in the swear jar, Dave.
I do. Anyway, so I have Tufts as a 3-point favorite. I think this game is going to be, despite how Tufts played last week, they were playing, Bowden's an odd duck team. They play that crazy defense. It's opening day. Their offense, they have a new quarterback in Keller. Chartelis Reese first game back. They've got Shapiro, who wasn't that great on that day. I think Wesleyan wins this game 24-17, but I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I think that players to watch in this game, I Dylan Connors doesn't have too many games back-to-back where his name isn't in the box score. So I'm going to look for him. Big players come out in big games. It's a big night game. I think he's a guy I would definitely keep an eye on the Wesleyan defense. Obviously, easy to say Dante Kelly, keep your eye on him. But I think Matt Diaz running the ball and Tyler Flynn running the ball have big days for Wesleyan. I think Tufts will be better offensively, but I just think Wesleyan's got more talent right now. The big question for Tufts is on the wide receiver side, who's going to be that guy for Justin Keller to step up into that Richardson, Lutz type role. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great atmosphere. 7:00 start, true night game, be a big crowd. I know there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of alums there from both sides. A lot of West alums are making, a lot of them are in the Boston area. A lot of people are making the trip for that game. And there's going to be a lot of Tufts folks there, and they'll be out there cheering them on. Both teams are 1-0. And by the way, look, this game could ultimately, like it did last year, Chris, play into the NESCAC championship standings at the end of the year this year.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to break down here as someone who watched Wesleyan every play last week. Matchup-wise for Tufts, I think where Wesleyan has shown vulnerabilities is in the early part of the season. I think their secondary is behind the rest of their defense. If you cannot take advantage of that through the air, then you might be in some trouble, because Wesleyan was very good stopping the run. They had 3 or 4 guys rallying around the football every time Middlebury tried to run the football. So for Tufts, if they're going to be successful, they're going to have to figure out a way to throw the football. From a defensive perspective, we haven't seen Matt Fitzsimons be uncomfortable back there, and I don't know whether that's because he's just a different guy in terms of his poise, or if that's whether or not Middlebury just was unable to establish any semblance of a pass rush. Probably a little bit of both. So it'll be interesting to see against maybe some different athletes. Tufts definitely has some different athletes on the field, whether they can make him uncomfortable and what that's going to look like. Because not only did Wesleyan not turn the ball over, they didn't really look like turning the ball over last week. They weren't really put into positions to turn the ball over. But I think one key factor, and something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, and it feels like every time these two teams meet, it comes down to special teams. Not just the kicking game, but the ability to protect when it comes to the kicking. Meaning, Wesleyan has come, Gage Hammond does a very good job punting the football, but he is very deliberate in his delivery when it comes to punting the football. It'll be interesting to see if Tufts sees some things on tape and tries to make a game-changing play to shift the momentum in this game, whether that be a punt block, etc. Because typically in these early season games, they can shift like that when it comes to a big momentum play. And most of the time that comes either by way of a pick six or a fumble return or a punt block or a kick return. So I think that's where this game will be won. I tend to agree with you. I think Wesleyan probably has a little bit too much for Tufts. I wouldn't have Tufts as a favorite based on what I saw from the signal caller from Wesleyan last week. I don't think they've lost anything there. And I think they've added in terms of having the most dynamic player on the field. I think every week Wesleyan's going to line up and have the best player on the field. That's just my opinion. Now, that player could get hurt. He is diminutive in stature, and I'm trying to be cautious, but when my eyes see something, my eyes see something. So I think that's only going to get more complicated for defenses, and I think you're going to see some ridiculous, if healthy, you're going to see some ridiculous numbers from Dante Kelly this year. That's my projection. I will be shocked if Dante Kelly is not I have to taper myself here because it's all based on if he's healthy. If he is healthy, he will be the most dynamic player in the NESCAC this year, and I'll just leave it at that. I like Wesleyan to win this game, but I think it's going to be like every one of these games. It's going to come down to a last-second kick, which means it can go either way. So only one way to find out. Saturday night, you got to watch. So that's where we're at. Dave and I disagree on some things. We agree on other things. But what I can agree on is that we both are looking forward to this weekend, Dave. So another week gone by. Great opportunity for you and your buddies to get together and watch a lot of NESCAC football on Saturday, because it's a rare time where you can watch all the games without having to be focusing on one. So hopefully we'll be able to.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll find some time to communicate on Saturday and touch base. But until then, thanks for everyone for listening. Please follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to 9 Weeks NESCAC on YouTube with Chris Grace and Dave Bagatelle. And subscribe, leave comments, click the like button, whatever. We'd love to interact with you. We want to know what you want to hear, who you want to hear from, etc. But until next time, Dave, it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoy this.
Always a pleasure. And the best thing is we still got 7 more weeks to go, Chris.
Absolutely. Even more than that, Dave. We got 8 weeks to go. But next time we talk, we'll have 7 weeks to go.
Correct. We got 7 more episodes.
That's right. At least bare minimum. But until next time, for our great sponsors, Game Time Sports and Sloan Walsh, and for Dave Bagatelle, for our guests, Matt Fitzsimons and Coach Cosgrove, I'm Chris Grace. Thank you for watching and or listening to 9 Weeks, an unofficial NESCAC football podcast. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the football. These are student athletes after all. Enjoy what they do. So long, everybody.